Okay, we're holding by the third page of the Maimer. We were explaining the pasuk Kiseitze L'Melchama Alevecha. We had various questions on the words Kiseitze. Why does it say in the singular? Why does it say Alevecha? Why does it say in the plural? Why does it say, in other words, it starts in the singular and then it says Alivecha in the plural, and then it goes back to saying the son Hashem l'kach b'yadacha, that Hashem will place him in the singular, and why does it say Alivecha? Anyway, the series of questions we started addressing by first explaining that the Mulchama that we're talking about over here is an ongoing war. Every single person has this war during davening, and there has to be in a way of, you have to go out to the war, you have to go out of yourself, to be able to attain and to be able to reach what we need to accomplish. We need to go out of ourselves, and in addition to that, we have to, and that's through that we can go up on the ladder of davening, that even though the ladder of davening begins Arza on a very low level, even lower than Oretz, it reaches all the way up to Shamayim, even higher than Shamayim. We have the highest levels that we are getting to be able to have this milchama, to be able to have the victory in the war, where the intellect takes over, and the intellect, where the nafshel kis resides, is able to influence the entire body. And also we said, it says kitetze in the singular, because to be able to have the success in this war, there needs to be the level of unity, there needs to be the level of oneness, achdus v'iskalus. That's why we say Hareinu Mekabel before davening. That's why we need to include everybody in our davening. We daven in plural, we don't daven in the singular, Shema Kileinu, not Shema Koili, etc. Because this unity, that affects that there should be able to be the Hashra Shem Yudke Vovke, to be able to have an Asona Havaya Lekecha, the level of Havaya, that is only when you have Achdus and Iskalus. Now we're going to go on to explain the idea why to say Alivecha. We asked at the beginning of the Maimer that it says Alivecha, upon your enemies. Why does it say upon your enemies? It should say Kenegedevecha, or there's other expressions about going to war. Why does it use the term Al, upon? Ois Dalet. Third page in the Maimer. Mamshel, because of the pasuk continues, Kiseitze L'Melchama Alivecha. Behind this means even though there is an enemy, there's enemies in the plural. That's why there's a need to go to war. Sometimes you can have disagreements, but you don't have to go to war. But here you're having such enemies that are so severe that you need to go to war. To such a degree is the war during davening, it's in such a way that it's hard work. As we know, davening is called the avoida of the heart. Now, who says that's hard? The way it's translated, avoida shebalev, the service of the heart. Okay, service doesn't have to be difficult. But Alter Rebbe explains that the word avoida is related to something that indicates that the avoida of davening is actually very difficult. Like the Alter Rebbe explains in Torah and Paras Mishpatim, Shuloshen ibud oiris, that when one works and puts in the very intensive effort into hides, that is related to the word avoida. Changing hides into leather or into parchment is a very difficult and very caustic process, and needs a lot of chemicals. Avoida kosher. So the word avoida that Alter Rebbe relates is connected to ibud oiris, the working of the hides, indicating that the avoida in davening, the avoida shebalev, is not a stroll in the park. Yet, despite the fact that the war and the avoida of davening, which is difficult, is so difficult. Mikol Makim still in all. Hayitzia L'Machama Hi Ba'ofen Shehu Alevecha. Going out to wars in such a manner that it's upon your enemies, meaning L'Mayla Miyavecha. It's you're higher than your enemies. This means to say, Shein Ze Ba'ofen Shenilcham Im. It's not like he's fighting with someone that's on his level. He's fighting with a peer. The Yid knows initially at the start that he's incomparably higher than your enemies. What benefit is that to know as soon as you go out to war? As soon as you go out, you're aware that's alevecha. What's the necessity for that? This knowledge itself affects the victory in the war in a much higher and a much easier way. That to do so, that is the point of the war. That it should be, or the point of this pasuk is to, as difficult as it is, to make it an easier victory and in a much higher manner. And what ensures that the victory is easier and a much higher manner, a better victory, a greater victory, it's when a person knows that they are upon your enemies. It's like anything. When we do a certain activity and we have doubts about it and we don't know, A, will we be successful? B, even if we will be successful, will it be successful in the best way possible? Will we, will be, eventually, will it get done, etc., etc. So then this itself slows the person down, and that itself becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy to negate their possible success. But when a person knows that initially, as soon as he goes out, he is upon his enemies, so that itself gives him the capability to be able to overcome the enemies. We asked earlier in the Maimer, on the son, why does it say? He starts off in the plural, your enemies, but then he says you will place him in your hand, in the singular. Why does he use the singular if he started off by saying oivecha, your enemies, in the plural? Because though the person has many enemies in the plural, there's no need to battle every one of those enemies individually. Rather, Hashem gives over all of these multiple enemies, that they are all at once given over into his hands. Like it says on a son, he gives it to him in the singular. So if a person faces many different challenges spiritually, it's not like I have to take on this challenge and then this challenge and this challenge. But if I go out to war, Hashem will make sure that it's like all together, everything is taken care of. And the Rebbe brings an example from a similar thing that Hashem did for the Yidden when they went out to a physical war, where it could have been individual battles, but instead Hashem brought it all together so that doesn't have to be individual battles. Third line, the paragraph, similar to what we find in the war against Sichon, Hashem said, why do I need to burden my children to besiege and attack every single city? It was, as you soon mentioned, there were 60 cities over there to conquer. They're going to have to go through the whole effort of going to war. So in every single city, instead, Hashem did the following. He placed in the heart of all of the soldiers to leave their towns, to leave their cities. They all gathered to war against the Yidden to one place. And over there they were defeated. And then, after the defeat of all the soldiers that came from the different towns, then the Eden went easily into all the cities and took them over. There was no defense. Until they conquered 60 cities. A similar vein we also find on the cusp of Mashiach's times. In a similar vein we find concerning the Haftarah of Chag HaSukkos, concerning the battle of Gog and Magog, it says, I will gather all the nations to Yerushalayim to a war. Seemingly this sounds awful, this sounds terrible. All the nations will be by Yerushalayim for a war. It's a terrible thing. But as usual, we misinterpret and misunderstand Hashem's good intentions. Hashem is gathering them all together in one place so that once we defeat them, we're done with them. No need to go to this nation and that nation and the other nation, because all the enemies of the Eden will be completely destroyed. In a similar vein, the spiritual multiple enemies that a Yid faces, as when he decides he's going out to war, he's in the way of, he realizes that he's beyond and above them, etc., etc. So then Hashem ensures that they are all being able to be conquered at once without the need to go and deal with this detail and deal with that detail, etc. That's one point that he's saying over here, Unisanoi biyadecha, that I will place him in the singular. Another meaning will actually connect with what we said before, aloivecha, upon your enemies. Another explanation, top of page 4, when it says, I will place him in the singular, when it says to oivecha in the plural, that's referring to the people down here. There's whatever nation it is, they have a lot of soldiers, a lot of people, they have a lot of enemies. But when we're talking about unesanoi, that Hashem places him in the singular, it's not talking about the people down here. There are multiple people, but koi ala shoyrish daivecha l'mayla. It's referring to the root of your enemies above. By the way, maybe you could also say, we said earlier about Esav, that the Rebbe didn't say it openly. Aivecha has multiple enemies because by Esav it's not kiseitze in the singular, because he doesn't have achdus. Therefore, by a Yid, it's kiseitze in the singular because we have achdus and iskalus, we have the unity. But Esav, that was only 6 souls. By him, it says nefashis in the plural, the same thing. The enemies of the Yidden have no achdus, and therefore they are called multiple. But anyway, going back to here, unesanoi, you place him. It's referring koyal shorish da'evechel amaylo. We find a similar case where the Chazal derive this from a singular form. Al derech mashu kasav vayar Yisrael Mitzrayim mesas fasayom, similar to what it says in the pasuk that the Yidden saw Mitzrayim, that they passed, that they died on the ocean's edge, on the seashore. So it's a very strange expression. Why does it say Mitzrayim? Should have said Mitzrayim. They saw the land of Mitzrayim. What does it mean, Mitzrayim? They saw the singular. They saw that the ministering angel of Mitzrayim above, that he was Meis al Sfasayom. So just like in the case of Mitzrayim, the same thing, that Hashem will place him in your hands. The him is in the singular is referring to the shoirish of the enemy above. The third line, what's it mean? On your enemies? Literally higher than your enemy. The level that your enemy gets his highest from. The koyal sharshmal maila, it's referring to the root above. Shezel b'chinas hamakif de levoinu. So this brings down that there is the 11th level that the klippos get chayes from, that's like the 11th spice, corresponding to the 11th spice of the Ketores, that's the Levoina. Shua makif shel eser kisrin de mesavusa. It's the transcendent level of the 10 crowns of Tumah, which correspond to the 10 spheres in Kedusha. But by Klippa, there's number 11. And that number 11 is the makif level that gives them chayis. Shaydei ha-makif hazeh nimshach lahem chayis through that level of the makif. So it comes down to the klippos, their chayis, their vitality, their life force. V'inyan ha-melchama boy from the alei vecha hainu lifal abir the b'chinas alei vecha shu ha-makif the levana. The idea of the war in a way of on your enemies, atop, higher than your enemies, is to affect a refinement of the level that's upon and higher than your enemies. That's the makif of the levoina. That's the level of the source of the chayis. That's also why it says, I will give him, I will place him in your hands, in the singular, because it's not referring to the individual troops down here, but it's referring to the makif above. It's referring to that source of life force above. Because in that makif, everything is dependent. The Rebbe explains, once they gave him that makif, once we removed that source of life, then you don't have to be involved in refining and elevating the specific matters of thought, speech, and deed, which is the plural of the oivecha, because they become fixed up on their own, because you got to the core, you remove the life force and vitality of Klippa, so you don't have to deal with the oivecha, with the multiple enemies that are running around all different types of towns. That's the meaning again, that Hashem brings them all together, that you don't have to deal with them as individuals, the individual Klippas and so on. Messiah, and it concludes that you will capture his captives. It doesn't say you will capture captives, but you will capture his captives, meaning you will capture things that he captured. What does that mean? What Klip is captured are the netzoitzes of Kedusha. The netzoitzes of Kedusha, the sparks of holiness that are trapped in Klippa, we will capture it back from them. It's referring to the service in the world in refining and elevating the sparks. We refine also those things that were in captivity by your enemies. The question is, why is there even such a thing that should be sparks in captivity by the enemies? Why would it even be that way? The possibility for this is only for the sake of the ascent that takes place through the service of a person. It's not bread of shame. It should be that I'm earning my way. And according to the pain, that is the reward. So therefore, the greater ascent, the greater elevation of the sparks is this level of the when you take it out of captivity by klippas. And the avoid of davening itself is the idea that after davening we have tachnun, falling on our face. That the idea, according to Chassidus, of falling on our face is even a higher level of bittul. There's the bittul of Shemoneh Esrei, Ka'avda Kamamara, that we said that's the bittul of L'mayla Metam V'das, Kiseitze, you have to go so high, even higher than Tam V'das. But beyond that, there is Shu'inin HaMesiras Nefesh Sh'Avodas HaBerudim. Once we had already the bittul of Shemoneh Esrei, then there has to be the self-sacrifice for refining the sparks, for going out there and elevating the sparks. This Mesiras Nefesh for Avodas HaBerudim is something that is even in a certain way even higher than Shemoneh Esrei according to Chassidus, because as literally we're falling on our face, indicating that complete devotion beyond even the bittul of standing in Shemoneh Esrei. I say, so now the Rebbe is going to take all of these things that we explained in our parsha and connected with El. All of this is specifically and especially connected with the month of El. That the idea of El is that I am to my beloved and my beloved is to me. So the Rebbe says, not like we normally say, Ani l'doidi is in El, and doidi li, like the Alter Rebbe says in L'Kutei Torah, is later on in Tishrei. But rather, v'hainu, sha'avoida dani l'doidi pe'elis should take it from a yad avoida of I am to my beloved, effect that immediately, as it says, Ad Meheira Yoretz Dvarai, speedily his words shall rush and run. Yiyah ha'inyan the doidi li will be immediately doidi li. I don't have to wait till Tishrei, till Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, Sukkot, that you should have the doidi li. That's why the Rebbe says Shalchein Nirmas Gam Hu b'Rosh Tevis the Elul. That's why also the doidi li is hinted in Rosh Tevis of Elul. The Rebbe asks us in many places if doidi li is going on Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot and so on. Why is it part of the Rosh Tevis of Elul? And the Rebbe gives various answers. Here the Rebbe explains because we can affect immediately the doidi li right now in the month of Elul through doing the avoid of Anila doidi, and we know. And generally, the idea of Anila Doidi v'Doidi Li is also associated with davening. Davening is the avodah of Ava. That's the content of the whole idea of the avodah of davening. Until the ultimate level of davening is when you have that love relationship of Anila Doidi v'Doidi Li, that I show my love to Hashem, the davening, and Hashem returns that to me. It's hinted in what it says in the continuation of the parsha. After that, it says over there that she cried for her, the captive woman, that she cried a month of days. So Kimavur B'Sfarim, it's explained in Sfarim, specifically from the Arizal, the Yerech Yamim Zehu Chodesh El, this month of days that the captive woman, which goes on the Neshama, who's in captivity by Nefesh Bahamis and the Guf, is crying for a month of days. What month does the Neshama cry in? Shu Chodesh HaChesh B'Nal Avodah, the Shana, She'avra, top of the last page. It's since Chodesh El is the month of the month of calculating, of taking an accounting of the past year. It's also the preparation for the new year. So therefore, it's a time of crying, but so we're going to explain it in a positive way. Then after the captive woman had this month of crying, so then we have afterwards Tavi Elel Ba'alta, you will come to her and be with her. What is the idea of Tavi Elel Ba'alta according to Chassidus? Hainu Inyam Mesiris Nefesh V'Inyan Nefilas Apayim. The Alter Rebbe explains that the L'Kutei Torah Taka says in our parsha that this idea of Tavi Elel Ba'alta, this union of the Neshama and the Eibishter, is the idea of self-sacrifice, the idea of Nefilas Apayim that we said before. In times of the year, since Elul is this whole avodah, and Anila Doidi is this whole avodah, and we know the culmination of that is in Yom Kippur, so the Nefilas Apayim, which is the ultimate level of connection with Hashem, this idea of Nefilas Apayim, the Tavilel Ba'alta, this idea of the ultimate connection, Mesiris Nefesh, that's the state and situation where Yidden are by Ne'ilah of Yom Kippur. And the truth is, that intense bond is even increased and even more so afterwards in Shana Rabbah and Shmini Atzeres, at that time becomes the union of Yidden and the Eibishter in such a way that Yidden and a king are all alone. That's only for you alone. There's no foreigners with you, not like the first 7 days of Sukkot, where we offered all the different karbanos that corresponded to the 70 nations. There were brought 70 bullocks. But on Shmini Atzeres, we only bring one bullock to indicate this idea of only Yidden and Hashem alone. That this union results, like it says in the beginning of Chumash Bereishis, that they become as one flesh. From this we arrive at what it says right away after Parts Kiseitze. It'll be when you will come to the land. This is also coming to Eretz Yisrael. It's also connected with what he said, that you will cry for a month of days. The idea of ubachsa, the crying, that is the advantage and quality that says Mashiach's times, that they will come to Eretz Yisrael with crying. What type of crying? We're coming back to Eretz Yisrael, we should be happy. So the Rebbe explains, they're not connected, this crying, with untoward things. They become totally nullified until they become transformed to good. Like it says, Hashem did not want to listen to Bilam. And Hashem transformed and turned over for you the curse to a blessing. So there's nothing negative over here. There's just good and positive. But rather it's a cry of joy. It says those that will plant and sow with tears will harvest with song. It doesn't mean that they're sowing with tears of sadness, but according to the Rebbe's explanation over here, they're sowing with tears of joy. Similarly, it says you will go and cry. The one that's carrying the sack of seeds, and he will come in song, the one that's carrying the bundles of the harvested wheat. That's what it says in being Parsha Savi, what we fill the mitzvah bikurim from the first of all the fruits of the land. From the 7 species that Yisrael was praised with. Since we are receiving all the good of the land, both physically, materially, and spiritually. So it should be for us in our times, in the true and complete redemption, speedily mamish.